Wow, how much fun is this already? We've had the keynote speaker earlier today. We just talked to Lisa here with that one out a couple of the other sessions, and it seems like everybody is fully engaged. We have over 130 guests here today, so things are actually taking place here, and we're making some headway. This is becoming a very interesting and good event. So I'm going to bring up to the stage here right now Joseph Milton. Joseph is a strategic leader whose mission is to elevate the performance of those around him. Joe is a man of God, glorifies God, and empowering others. That's his purpose in life. He is a husband and a father and enjoys all kinds of sports. Boy, I wish I could get out and actually do golf again and basketball. I've kind of gotten a little bit lazy in my time in my days lately. He has held leadership roles in private and corporate organizations across multiple industries. Joe's area of focus are leadership, theology, and evolving work management practices. I've heard him also in some of his introductory speeches, and when we've had some practice sessions. He's been working on this for a while, and I'm very excited to see what he's going to be providing today. So, Joe, if you want to come on up and join me on stage.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate the words. Excited to be here today with the group. So let me see if I can share my screen and get us started here. So before we jump in, I just want to ask for participation. Really excited to be here talking with this group today. I think it'll be a better experience for if we share the knowledge that we all have as we try to go through this subject, which is something I am passionate about and excited to talk about, which is project leaders of the future. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. And before we get into some of that, I want to just do a quick introduction. So my name is Joe Milton. I'm the Director of Strategic Planning and Delivery and Technology at AutoNation. I am not here today as an authorized agent for AutoNation, so these are my personal views, but I also work in the technology division there. And I also want to share some of the things that help shape my perspective and some of the things we're going to talk about today, so you know where I'm coming from. And so the first is that I've led sales teams, multiple different types of sales teams, including outside sales teams. And the reason I think that's important is because one of the things we're going to talk about is performance and compensation type performance, and trying to be able to let go of results. And so I know what it's like to have compensation be tied to our performance. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I've worked in large corporations and small businesses, and so understand some of the challenges that go along with both of those. PMP certified project manager, and I've delivered projects on the technology as well as the business side. Agile certified practitioner, and so I've worked with some of the large organizations on how to adopt agile mindsets and tools and begin to think about how they can apply those in their organizations. Worked in strategy departments, budget allocation and resource allocation, and some of the financial forecasting and things that go along with this. General leadership as well, and led different types of teams. So I've led project manager teams, I've led business analyst teams, and so have some experience in different leadership roles. And then last is theology. And so, I've wrestled with theology and who God is and who I am for decades. And so it definitely is a piece of who I am and helps shape the things that we're going to talk about today. Okay, so the agenda today, 3 main points we want to talk through. So one is the rate of change is increasing. And so hopefully we'll go through examples and we'll all agree on that. The next is, I believe due to this rate of change increasing, that project managers who are going to empower others around them are going to maximize their impact. And then last is a framework for personal transformation that if we actually instill will help us be better at empowering those around us. So before we jump in, I want to share a quick video. And so the good news is I practiced this. The bad news is it still takes a little bit of work. So I will share this video and then I'll be right back. Okay, so I don't know if Arnold was everybody's childhood hero like mine, but I don't believe that that is our future. But we do know that machine learning and AI and all those things are going to certainly be ushering in the future for us. So, okay, luckily, I don't think that's the full future. So, what is the new normal that I think is going to impact us in the project management profession? So, the first is the digital revolution. And so the digital revolution, I think one of the big things for us as a leadership shift is that you're seeing it go from a hierarchy or command and control structure to more of a network and empowering the network around us. And so Seth Madison, in his book, The War at Work, did a really good job of breaking this down and showing some of the key trends that are moving us in this direction. And so the first one being unprecedented access. And so think of the type of information that we have and can get quickly. So feel free to share in the comments if you have some examples you want to share with that. He also talked about unprecedented or exponential reach. And so with that, the fact that we can @ someone on Twitter or hashtag, I mean, the reach of that we can have as a broader community is much higher today than it's ever been. And then last is hyper immediacy. And so the ability for us to get things done much more quickly. And so this digital revolution certainly is going to become, I believe, more of our new normal. And so on top of that, so depending on who you listen to, we could be moving out of that revolution already and actually predicting the next. And so this increased rate of change with AI and machine learning, I think, is actually impacting this rate of change and what's new normal for us. So think about, so historically, industrial revolutions were about 100 years apart. And that means you could go through your entire career without having a major disruption or a major change. And so now we're beginning to see this change happen more and more often. And so where it was scale and predictability and things of that nature in the past, I think that the things that we're going to need to do to take advantage of this rate of change is going to impact the way we lead. And then next is workforce and customer expectations. And so not only are customers and employees now wanting a seamless and a frictionless experience, they're also caring about purpose and they're caring about how we do things. And so thank you for mentioning AutoNation with the $25 million donated to the cure of cancer. So very proud of that, and that's a purpose and something we can get behind. The employees and customers are also caring about how you do things. So where are you sourcing your napkins? How are you helping the environment? What are you doing to combat recycling needs and things of that nature? And so it's going to be more and more important for, I believe, revenue as well as recruiting to make sure that we're moving and taking care of those expectations of purpose and how and experience. And so all of that, I believe, brings us to innovation. And so you have the revolution and you have an increased rate of change and you have increased expectations. So I believe to win in the future, we're really going to have collaboration and trust and a new operating system that's going to help us take advantage of where we need to go. Any comments, questions, concerns before I move on to the next slide on the new normal there? Okay. Go to the next one. All right, so I'll give you a second to digest this slide. I have a couple things I want to point out, but I want to see if you have anything that jumps out to you when you look at this industrial revolution slide. That's true. So I think what stuck out to me, which I mentioned a little bit on the last slide, right? If you look historically at the cycle, the cycles are speeding up at the rate of change. And so, like I said, we're, depending on who you listen to, we're already kind of moving into this next fourth, and we're already predicting the fifth. And so the ability to move into this increasing rate of change, I think, is going to be something that's going to impact us as project managers and, the profession of technology as well in general. All right. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so one tool I hope you can take away from today as well. This is Gartner is a consulting company that I've been working with, and I've learned a ton from them. They have a Smarter with Gartner website that's free, so I'd recommend signing up for that. If you haven't done that, you get articles and different trends and things. And so I wanted to share, as we're talking about rate of change, just a quick video that they gave us permission to share, which is showing their top trends and to give us a feel for what this rate of change is doing and some of the new things that they're seeing come down the pipeline here. So I will share this quick video and then I will be right back. Okay. So the intent there was just to show some of the trends and things that I think are going to be impacting us and our world. So we will now move on to the next section, which is project managers who are going to empower those around them. We're going to maximize their impact. Okay, so we'll start with the fun stuff, which is my initial disclaimers as we move into this. So feel free for questions or feedback as we go through these. So my first disclaimer is I don't believe that if everything was agile, all of our problems would go away. I don't believe that project management is not going to be needed as a profession in the future. And I don't believe that all PMs should become Scrum Masters or product owners or release train engineers. And I don't believe that there's going to be one right way to deliver in the future. So I do think that those are some of the things I just want to make sure I get out on the table for. So what do I believe? As we look through some of this, I do believe project managers are going to need new mindsets and skills to help them deliver in the future. I believe that the metrics of effectiveness, which we're going to talk about here next, is going to continue to evolve, and that the relationship building and the trust is going to be a key enabler as we move into this innovation type work, as well as growth and learning are going to be a key differentiator for us as PMs and how we continue to grow and succeed in this new changing environment. So before I jump ahead, any comments, questions, or concerns with the disclaimers? Okay, wanted to get those out of the way. All right, so how will PM effectiveness be measured in the future? And so being a PMP certified project manager, you plan, you monitor, you control. We want to eliminate change. We want to reduce or eliminate risk. And so, budget, scope, and schedule is certainly what we're used to, comfortable with, and expected in our PM profession. So I think those are still going to be there. They don't go away. But I do think that the addition of or the increase of true business value, the ability to innovate for the teams, and then user adoption. So getting the benefits and the benefit realization of why we're doing this, making sure that it's, if you hit the budget and the schedule and the scope, but nobody's using it, or if you're not getting the business value, then that's not being effective as we move into the future. And then also helping the team test and learn and experiment and enabling them to get to the right solution, especially as things are going to change, and to take the right risk and to help the team deliver on the ultimate outcomes that you're trying to do as a PM, rather than, hey, did I hit the budget, scope, and schedule alone? And so to talk a little bit more in detail about that, I wanted to share, so this is from the project manager skills required for digital business success there in Gartner. So this is one of their components for effective indexes here. So I'll give you a second to take a look at it. It has business value, rapid throughput, and responsiveness. I'm curious, does anybody on the session today have any of these additional type of metrics that you're using or being used for your projects or products? Cool. So these are some of the things that we want to be thinking about as project managers. The business value, the responsiveness, and the rapid throughput. Okay, so this next slide comes from the same article from Gartner, and I'll give you a second to digest it. But I think for me, it really resonated because a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about today, as far as this personal transformation and some of the things that are going to be important for us, to me, this began to validate that, hey, this is adding real value as well. When you're talking about, so the one on the left, the score there is showing improvement opportunities for us as project managers in these categories that Gartner has shown. If you're good in these are like the key capabilities that are PMs that are outperforming the norm are doing. And so they built this wheel on the right side there, the entrepreneurial skill set model, and kind of breaking down what those skills are. And so what really struck me is, some of the top performing items there and things that we can continue to grow in as project managers is emotional intelligence, the network performance, which is really using the organizational network around us to help make sure that we're driving the results, and servant leadership. Believe it or not, there for PMs, when we're looking at that, most people would say, "Oh, well, that's a Scrum Master," but the reality is, it's not just a Scrum Master; it's how we lead, and as well, there your stakeholder partnership and making sure that we're getting to that ultimate end value that they're going to need as a stakeholder. Any comments, questions, or concerns on this one? Oh, someone's saying they're not seeing the Gartner data. Can you guys see my slides? There's two slides. Okay. Okay, sorry. Maybe we can follow up later if it's not coming through. If it's maybe harder, I'm not so sure if you're seeing it two screen. Yeah. So the slides will be available out there for you as well. I know it is a lot, but that's why. So the focus is this, to me, validates emotional intelligence, network performance, and servant leadership.
Sorry, Joe. Just one quick comment, folks. If you can't see it, do those 4 arrows in the top right-hand corner of that slide, and it will expand it. It makes it much easier for you to read it. Okay. It's like, and you can also minimize it again so you can see Joe's fantastic hair day as well. All right. So just an FYI on that.
Thanks. Takes a lot of gel to do that, but okay. Yes. And then someone asked about the slides. I do think the slides are going to be posted somewhere after this, but I'll let Ed answer that next. Okay. So anyway, so the main takeaways there were that these soft skills, if you will, that we're going to talk about are actually one of the things that Gartner is predicting is going to be one of the differentiators as we move into the future for digital business for project managers. Okay, so what does that mean for us? And so what type of project manager change is needed? And so for me, the first thing is we're going away from we're going to have less IQ and more EQ. And so for EQ, meaning emotional intelligence, the ability to kind of understand our emotions, the ability to understand how we're impacting those around us, and to monitor, to motivate those around us as well. And then moving from that command and control structure to more of the empowering. So Frances Fry, in her book Unleashed, did a really great job, I think, of breaking this down as well, of how to empower the teams around us and how to have high standards, as well as high devotion, and how to help the team deliver around you. And then next is from less knowing to more learning. So this is, again, trying to be curious, trying to experiment, trying to prove ourselves wrong rather than prove ourselves right. So we'll talk about growth mindset and some other things later, but moving from trying to be right first to actually trying to find the right solution throughout the process. Oops, I think I turned off my share screen. And then the last one on this list being moving less short-term outcomes, more purposeful outcomes. And so Simon Sinek, in his book, The Infinite Game, I thought did a really good job of breaking this down and making the case that, making the purposeful decisions over the long term are going to give us better long-term results. We got to pay the bills and we got to do those things, but making those decisions ultimately will lead us to better outcomes long-term. So what does that mean for us? So that means, as leaders, I think we're going to want to make sure we're creating culture, that we're creating the relationships, and that we're creating the environment and the frameworks around us to empower those people that we're working with to be successful. And so we can talk a little about some of these leadership traits. So how do we do that? So for me, this means we equip. And so for equip, this is, personally, as well as what I want to do for when I'm working with a team. And so to be purpose-driven, and to be purpose-driven to me means, regardless of circumstances, because we're all going through some strange circumstances right now. And so to remain purpose-driven during that is a challenge. It's something we want to help ourselves and our teams do. To be intentional. And so that to me means we want to focus on what we can control and let go of the things that we can't. To be responsible, to take accountability, and to be consistent, right? So the small changes that we make and that we implement over time are going to make a big difference in the long run. And then to be resilient. I mean, if this year has taught us anything, it's that we need to be resilient. We're going to get knocked down, and we're going to have to work to equip ourselves to be able to get back up. The next is that empower bucket, if you will. And so I think for me, this starts with, you want to be self-aware, but also self-aware on how we impact those around us. We want to be authentic. And so, dropping the facade, we're not going to be able to build meaningful relationships if we're not being our true authentic selves. Want to be humble and respect those, the individuals we're working with. Curious, once again, seeking to learn. And Growth Mindset, that was a great book by Carol Dweck. Highly recommend it. And we'll talk a little bit more about it when we talk about mindsets and the framework. But the ability to seek to learn and to grow is something that was very, very valuable for me when I was studying it. And then to encourage, right? We want to speak life and we want to build others up. We want to be empathetic and truly begin to understand what others are going through. Collaborative, we want to co-labor, co-partner. Caring, this is just taking interest in those around us and how we can help them. Enthusiastic, so I want to bring my best and help others bring their best. And then being grateful. And so grateful, to me, one of the big things that I'm trying to do is be content, but not comfortable. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that later as well. Okay, so we talked about the increasing rate of change, and that, I do believe we're going to need some new leadership skills to empower those around us to take advantage of the increase in change. And that to do that, we're going to need personal transformation to truly empower those around us. So before we jump into the actual framework, I want to just share some of the personal barriers that I've had to implementing this framework. So to be this type of leader, I think that these are some of the things that I've experienced and I've seen. And so you may not have all of these, you may have some that aren't on here. And so it's not meant to be an exhaustive list, but these are some of the things that I've seen will hinder my ability to try to empower those around me. And the first is control. So if I'm seeking or needing control or approval or validation, my image or my comfort, those things will certainly impact my ability to empower the team and be the type of leader that I'm saying I want to be and the journey that I'm on. So let's talk a bit more about those. So by control, what I mean is, we want to control outcomes, we want to control people, and we want to control circumstances. And so what I believe we should be moving more towards is trying to influence things like culture and relationships and process and tools. And so Joshua Medcalf had a great book, Burn Your Goals and Transformational Leadership, that kind of summed it up for me when he was talking about the most important thing is who we want to become and defining those things and letting go of the control. And so, I love the books, but then last year I felt like I really experienced them. So last year was a very hard year. I know this has been a very hard year for all of us. So coming out of last year, make a long story short, I went into a routine checkup, and was supposed to be nothing, and multiple CT scans and MRIs and multiple things to finally get told by the doctor that hey, you do have a tumor on your adrenal gland, and we think it's probably cancer, and we think it's spread from somewhere else. And so those next 2 weeks of waiting for the PET scan were some of the hardest of my life. I remember, hugging my wife, leaving the doctor's office, had tears in my eyes, yelling at God, angry, frustrated, scared, what it meant for me, what it meant for my family. And the realization that I wasn't in control had never been clearer to me. And I think that the freedom that did come out of that, the reality that I can't, make my heart beat, I can't make myself breathe, the freedom to begin to realize I'm not in control, allowed me to begin to let go, to enjoy the time that I did have with my family, to enjoy the relationships that I had and the blessings that I did have. And it was a, like I said, scary and frustrating and humbling time, and questioning, hey, is God still good in these circumstances? That also began to rip down the facade of being in control. Now, good news is I had the surgery. The tumor was removed. It did turn out to be benign. So all very blessed, but also began to bring down that facade of being in control. The next is approval. And so for approval, I have a quick video I want to show you, if I can get my mouse to work here, that I think sums it up for the approval part. And when I say quick, I mean it. This one's like very quick, but in my opinion, worth it.
Do I need to be liked?
Okay, so I got a kick out of that, and I do believe that approval is something that that I know I struggle with, and I'm sure other people probably do as well, and that I've been guilty of fishing for likes, saying things that are going to get people to go along with you, and I think that the true freedom of letting go of that and being our authentic selves is something that's going to help us build the relationships we're going to need in the future. And when we talk about approval and authenticity, so if you guys have some definitions from authenticity, I'd love to hear them. So for me, what it's meant is authenticity to me is the ability to actually face reality and accept reality. So, letting go of some of the facades to be able to face that, but then also the freedom to apply that growth mindset and continue to grow in that. So I think we can, for authenticity, I feel like we can kind of go both directions. One is one is that that if we're trying to be too authentic and we don't believe there's any room for improvement, that we're cutting ourselves short. And then the other obviously is if we're just trying to pretend, then we're not going to be able to live the framework that we're going to try to talk about here in a moment. All right, okay, next is validation. So I will say for validation, when I was going in for surgery, I wasn't thinking about what type of car I had, how much money was in the bank, what neighborhood I lived in, what my title was at work, all the things that, sometimes we can look to give us value, worth, identity, meaning. All those things were, proven meaningless. And it actually gets a little bit even worse than that for me. Things like the Miami Dolphins can determine how I feel if I allow it on a Sunday or for a week or decades. And my golf game that nobody else cares about but me can literally determine how I feel for that day or for that weekend or for whatever. So these are the types of things that I want to be able to break down. If we're looking to performance or any other things to give us that value, worth, or identity, it's going to be harder to try to live the framework that we're going to talk about and go through that transformation. All right. Angel's question is fishing for likes to see if you're on the right path of approval from the audience. Let's see. I'm trying not to get approval from the audience unless it's authentic. All right. So image. So image, I'll let you take in that quote for a second. I recently posted about like my anxiety and panic attacks. And it was something that I really wrestled with. Should I share this? And the reality is, it still could hurt me. But I actually, the encouragement I received, as well as people that were grateful because knowing they weren't alone, began to encourage me that I was on the right path. And I do think that if we're going to break down those facades and if we're going to build those meaningful relationships, that we're going to have to let go of our image. I want to be seen as strong, and as we talked about with approval. And so to move into this new transformation, if you will, we have to be able to let go of the facade and build those meaningful relationships. And then the last barrier there is comfort, right? And so comfort to me means kind of self-serving, kind of following only the things that are going to impact us and looking for the easy road. And so, as I said before, my goal here is to learn to try to be content, which is grateful for where I'm at and what I have, but then also to be growth minded and to be free enough to continue to try to strive for more. All right. Okay, so then pull that all together and we'll talk a little bit now about the framework. So this is a renewing heart and mind. It's a framework that that I've been working on personally that I hope can add value to others, because as I said, I actually think it's going to add business value as well as we look at how can we prepare for this incoming rate of change. And so the components here will start with identity. And so for identity, this is who you are. This is a personal application, so not normally for teams. And the goal here is for security, right? And so I don't believe that if we tie our identity into our performance or our outcomes or all those other things we were just talking about, that we're going to be able to truly begin to implement the things we're going to talk about next. And, one of my friends asked me, so what's the most important component of this? I do believe it's identity, because if we're not secure in who we are outside of our performance, then I don't think we're going to have the ability to be free enough to then live the other things we're going to talk about next. And so, for you personally, if anybody has anything they want to share for their identity that they want to encourage the group, please put it in the comments. For me, this is found in the gospel of Christ, that I'm fully known, fully loved, regardless of my performance. And so I don't expect everyone to believe what I believe, but I do encourage us all to find that thing that we are resting in outside of performance. Okay, and the next is purpose. And so for purpose, this is our why or our strengths. This is for personal application or team. And the goal here is direction. And so I think of purpose as like our North Star. What truly matters to us in the end. And so Simon Sinek and his book Start With Why. I think it's defining our strengths and then lining up that North Star of where we want to go. If anybody has any purpose stuff they want to share for their purpose, please feel free to throw that in the comments as well. And then next from purpose is values. And so for values, I think of these, the focus is going to be our principles, our guiding principles. So if you have direction as like the North Star, I see values are our compass for our daily decisions. And so this is personal and or team. And this is to give the guidance to the team so that they know, what's most important to us and for you personally, as well as for the team. And so for values, there was a couple good books as well from that Joshua Medcalf, The Burn Your Goals and Transformational Leadership. Those were ones that really just helped me try to think through what those values were. And then these are things that you want to continue to instill in the team, because we'll talk a little bit about later, this is one of the building blocks for culture as well. Okay, next is mindsets. And so mindsets, these are worldviews or attitudes. These are personal and or team, and this gives you clarity. And so one of the examples with growth mindset was with Carol Dweck in her book, Growth, it was actually Mindset. And so what she did in that book, though, was break down the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And so as I began to study it, I can see back in high school, for example, I would have a fixed mindset, meaning I would take easier classes to make sure I got an A and to prove that I was smart, rather than challenging myself and trying to build for the future or trying to learn or grow in my capabilities. And so I think teams can have that as well. And so defining and cultivating these mindsets are going to be important for our teams to do. And then you have abundance for scarcity. If you feel it's very limited, then we're going to fight each other. If we feel there's abundance, what kind of mindsets do we want to have there? Working in sales has been one of the things that mindsets is very important. One of the sales managers used to always say, you can't steal my joy. That's a great attitude, a great mindset that can make a difference in your culture as well. Okay, and the last there is habits. And so for habits, this is about being intentional, focusing on what we can control. It's about consistency over time. And so Joshua Medcalf had some good books as well for Chop Wood, Carry Water, and Pound the Stone, which just talks about the path to mastery and to actually become an expert in things. It's going to take habits and it's going to take work over time. And so, to me, defining these habits that are going to help us define and redefine and cultivate the identity and purpose and values and mindsets, putting that structure around ourselves and around our team that are going to continue to support those, I think are very important. And then transforming by renewing heart and mind. I guess the message here that I want to share is that it's not a one and done, right? This is a journey that we're on. And so to do it, you define it and you continually refine it, and you continually look for ways to hold ourselves and our teams accountable and to build that. A lot of times we're talking about culture change. And so when we're talking about culture change, I think, the definition I like of culture is how things are done around here, or the unwritten rules. And so when we're looking at how do we impact culture as leaders, I think that's, those values and those mindsets and those habits are the first places we start, right? And so even when we're talking about agile transformations and things of those nature, the values are going to be one of the first things you want to define, in the mindsets, right? So you want to have the agile mindset just as much as the tools, and then the habits. That's going to be the Scrum ceremonies, and many times, and things of that nature. So you want to build your culture around those things, and if you want to impact culture, that's the first place that I would start, is kind of your values, mindsets, habits, defining those and instilling those. Does anyone have any values, habits, mindsets, purpose, identity, anything they want to share? Be positive. Love that one. Voice of the team. Like it. Inclusion and fun. Yes. Morning cheerful person. I like it. Listen. Okay. Good. Does anybody have some very successful collaboration time? Any successful, when you think of like some of the most successful cultures you've been a part of, what are some of the things that stick out to you? Clear, common purpose. Yeah. Transparency. Good. Simplicity of goals. Values. These are all good. Great. Yep. Honesty, learning, individuals, inclusions. Yeah. Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Okay. Empathy. Yes, those are all good. Okay, so as we said, that this is it's a journey, right? So it's what's our next step? And so just a quick thing, if you wanted to take this back for your team and have an application, you can start by just ranking some of these components personally, and then as well ask your team to give you some input on what they think for your team. So I would put 1 to 5. So 1 being the best, meaning we have this fully defined. We got the posters on the wall. We all understand it. What our purpose, our values, what our mindsets, what our habits are. And I would rate those, and then have this team rate what they think for the team, and then pick the top priority. So I would focus on just 1 to start. Right, we can't boil the ocean, which I think I heard in the last session, which I really like. So don't boil the ocean. Just pick 1, the highest priority, which would be your higher numbers between you and the team, and work on defining that, and then come up with an exercise to reinforce that. So maybe it's habits. So you pick a couple habits that the team is going to commit to, and you define them, and then you hold yourselves accountable to it over the next month or so. If there's some different mindsets or things that you want to work on, or make sure you're defining, that you do that as a team, and that you continue to work through that. Any comments, questions, or concerns here for the exercise? All right. So if you'd like to connect, if you have any feedback, feel free to reach out. Here is my LinkedIn and my email and cell phone. As I said, the slides are going to be available out there as well. And now I do want to leave some time for additional questions and conversation that you guys have.
All right, thanks, Joe. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? Great conversation. really hits home with a lot of the things that we're dealing with. Really talks about how to get along with the teams and talking about the future and what's happening. And it's happening faster and faster. I think Andrew's slide this morning that showed the introduction of electricity, and then it showed the introduction of TV, and then it showed the introduction of the internet, is proof positive about that exponential rate in which things are actually changing around us. So yeah, this and what you brought to the table is a way to really utilize our skills in order to bring that together. So that was really terrific. So I appreciate that. Again, all the slides will be available. I should have made that known on the our webpage so that we'll have all that kind of information out there. And we're good to go.
All right. Thank you all. I appreciate the time. Have a great week. End.
All right, folks. So what we're going to do now, wow, why does that keep happening? You can go ahead. Joe, you're good.
Yep. Okay.
All right. So folks, thank you very much for attending the morning sessions here. We are going to go now, if you want to go ahead and return into the main conference room. There may be other conferences going on right now, so there may be other things that are happening, but we're going to meet there. We're going to have our lunchtime. Again, this is all networking type capabilities, so please stick around. Go ahead and get yourself something to eat, get yourself something to drink, take a bio break, all that kind of stuff. You have plenty of time. All right. We will be joining back at 1 o'clock for our panel discussion, which is going to be terrific. It's going to be monitored by Andrew, and we have some really great folks who are going to be participating in that panel. So thanks very much for showing up, and we'll talk to you soon.